Hello there, my name is Brother Sean, and as you can see, I'm a monk, an enclosed Franciscan monk, where I've dedicated my life for peace and unity within all faiths, not just the Christian faith. Yes, I am a Catholic Christian, and I embrace all beliefs. That is the mandate from St. Francis of Assisi back in 2008. And though we're in 2012, we continue to honor that promise. But now I'd like to share with you some thoughts about God as lover. Wow, God as lover, our supreme lover. But first I'd like to read you a quote from the Song of Songs. Set me as a seal on your heart, like a seal on your arm, for love is strong as death, passionate love as relentless as death. The flash of it is a flash of fire, a flame of God himself. Love no flood can quench, no torrent drown. And reading from my notes, it's probably worth just sharing with you my thoughts about that wonderful title, God as Lover. Perhaps the totality of God's love for his creatures finds its pivotal expression in what we understand as passionate love, that of a lover for the beloved. And this is how it is depicted in both the Book of Hosea and the Song of Songs. Beyond that, in both the Judaic and Christian traditions, the loving union of man and woman has constantly been presented as a symbol of the desired union between God and humanity. All of human life is a movement towards this union, which is the sole purpose of our existence. In Hosea, the scenario goes something like this. God compares his creatures to an unfaithful wife, worse, to a prostitute who takes many lovers, seeking through them to provide for herself without her husband's help. The husband's anger blazes at such infidelity, but such is his love he cannot bring himself to give her up. He has the power to cut her off from her lovers, make her life barren, but the bitterness of that is not a punishment. It is the means of coaxing her back to her husband, the only one who will be a true and faithful lover to her. In this simple story, we can trace the unfolding of the love story between God and his people. Individually and collectively, we try to fulfill our deepest longings by our own efforts, flitting from lover to lover, seeking satisfaction in relationships, money, possessions, achievements, even power. Yet for everyone time begins to run out, we find age creeping on. There are no more horizons, and all that promise of fulfillment seems to be slipping away. But that emptiness and disillusion are the very things that can point us back towards the only source of fulfillment. She will chase after her lovers, but not catch them. And she will say, I will go back to my first husband. She never realized that I was the one. And that's quoted in Hosea chapter 2, verse 9. God's total love supersedes death because it is eternal. Occasionally we can be permitted an insight into this truth. And I remember standing by the graveside of on a bitterly cold February day, my arm linked with an old man whose wife had suddenly been taken from him after a short illness. As the coffin was lowered, he clung to me so tightly that I myself somehow experienced in that grief the power of his love for her, and understood that the grave and that coffin were only peripheral to it. Even in its fullest sense, the love of man and woman can only be a faint shadow of God's love for each and all his creatures. A love of such passionate intensity that death is no barrier. The depiction of God in the scriptures as our lover has become a central theme of the spiritual journey for successive generations ever since, which is why the Song of Songs, essentially an allegory of courtship between two lovers, has been included in the canon of Scripture. The culmination of courtship is union, two beings becoming one flesh, not just physically, but bonded by love and commitment. Great spiritual writers like John of the Cross and Teresa of Avila have described the destination of the spiritual journey as the spiritual marriage, a state where God takes full possession of a person. These are lofty notions and not easily comprehended, but in a letter written to Saint Therese of Lisieux by her sister, there is a genuine perception of it. And responding to a description by Therese outlining her own spirituality, which she calls her little way, her sister Mary writes, "Oh, I was very close to weeping as I read the lines that were not of this earth, but an echo from the heart of God. May I tell you, I will. You are possessed by God, literally possessed." And St. Paul, in his letter to the Ephesians, describes it as being filled with utter fullness of God. My own interpretation is that full union with God is being filled with the fullness of love, where the self-centered ego has disappeared because love has replaced it. Beautiful words, don't you think? And here there's a quote from the wonderful Ruth Burroughs' Our Father. Throughout the passages of the Old Testament, with its history of humans as they really are, sinful, blind, obstinate, hard of heart, there shine stars, friends of God, who in some measure attained or were granted intimacy with the awful mystery. Such intimacy is still possible. Amidst a perverse and corrupt people, Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Here it is suggested was someone for whom God meant so much that he was swallowed up by him. Enoch disappeared, only God shone out. In this pregnant phrase of Scripture, we have a summing up of holiness, of the perfection of human life. And you know, each one of us is invited by the Supreme to embrace that mystical marriage, the hieroskamos, those of us who've been called by God to enter intimacy as a monk or a nun or a lay person. We enter that contract lovingly, freely, voluntarily, because there is a hunger within us that cannot be satisfied by materialism, by success, living in a posh place, surrounded by fair weather friends. There's an insatiable hunger in the soul that seeks that intimacy, It's a journey of two lovers, that of the man or woman seeking intimacy with their beloved. So God as lover is the most profound yet beautiful experience one can have on this earth plane, and it is available for you. Namaste.